What if I told you that the difference between people who thrive and those who merely survive comes down to just 60 seconds? Not 60 hours, not 60 days, just 1 minute each morning that separates extraordinary lives from ordinary ones. The moment you open your eyes, before you check your phone, before the world floods in with its demands and distractions, there's a sacred window of opportunity. And what you choose to whisper to yourself in that moment doesn't just set the tone for your day, it architects your entire destiny. Most people wake up and immediately surrender their power. They reach for their phones, scroll through others' highlight reels, and begin their day in reaction mode. But nearly 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, understood something profound that most of us still haven't grasped. He wrote in his personal journal, which we now call Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that for a moment. The Roman emperor, commanding legions and governing an empire, knew that his greatest battlefield wasn't against barbarian tribes or political enemies. It was the conversation happening inside his own head. Your morning self-talk isn't just positive thinking or feel-good psychology. It's ancient wisdom, battle-tested by Stoic philosophers who faced plagues, wars, exile, and death itself. When you master your inner dialogue, you don't just change your mood, you reclaim your life. Today, I'm going to share with you 19 powerful affirmations rooted in Stoic philosophy, each one designed to build unshakable inner strength. These aren't empty platitudes. They're mental armor forged from 2 millennia of human wisdom. Because when you control the story you tell yourself each morning, you control everything that follows. Are you ready to discover what that kind of power feels like? Part 1. Self-acceptance and personal growth. 1. I am complete as I am. Here's something that might shock you. The most successful people I've studied all share one peculiar trait. They stopped trying to become someone else. They stopped chasing external approval, stopped molding themselves to fit other people's expectations, and made a radical decision. They chose to be complete, exactly as they are. This isn't about settling for mediocrity or giving up on growth. It's about recognizing a profound truth that Marcus Aurelius understood when he wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." The real enemy isn't out there. It's the voice inside your head that whispers you're not enough. Let me tell you about a man who was told he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. His newspaper editor fired him for these exact reasons. He was rejected by banks, told his cartoon mouse would fail because women were afraid of mice on screen. Every expert, every authority figure, every so-called professional told him he didn't have what it takes. That man was Walt Disney. But here's what made Disney extraordinary. He didn't try to become what others wanted him to be. He didn't chase external validation or reshape his vision to please the critics. Instead, he embraced a radical form of self-acceptance. He trusted his inner compass, even when the entire world pointed in a different direction. When you tell yourself, "I am complete as I am," you're not declaring perfection or refusing to grow. You're claiming your right to exist without justification, to pursue your dreams without permission, to be human without apology. This kind of wholeness doesn't come from achievements or accolades. It comes from the quiet courage to honor who you are beneath all the noise. Disney didn't create magic despite being rejected. He created magic because he refused to let rejection define his worth. His completeness wasn't dependent on others' opinions, and neither is yours. The moment you realize you're already whole, you stop seeking completion in all the wrong places and start building from a foundation of unshakable self-worth. 2. I am growing every day. There's a dangerous myth that growth happens in dramatic moments. The big promotion, the life-changing revelation, the sudden breakthrough that transforms everything overnight. But here's what I've learned after studying the most resilient people throughout history. Real growth is quieter, more humble, and infinitely more powerful than we imagine. It happens in the small choices you make when no one is watching, in the daily decisions that seem insignificant but compound into extraordinary transformations. Seneca understood this when he wrote, "Every day, every hour offered something good if you were willing to see it." He wasn't talking about waiting for good things to happen to you. He was talking about the deliberate practice of finding growth in every ordinary moment. Consider Abraham Lincoln, a man who epitomizes this principle. Born in a one-room log cabin to illiterate parents, Lincoln had every excuse to remain small. No formal education, no connections, no advantages that society deemed necessary for success. But Lincoln understood something profound about growth. It's not about where you start, it's about the accumulation of daily choices. He taught himself law by candlelight, walking miles to borrow books, reading the same passages over and over until they became part of him. While others waited for opportunities, Lincoln created them through relentless daily improvement. He didn't become the great emancipator in a single moment of inspiration. He became that man through thousands of small decisions to learn, to grow, to become slightly better than he was the day before. When you tell yourself, I am growing every day, you're not just practicing positive thinking. You're acknowledging a fundamental truth about human potential. Every conversation you choose to have with patience instead of anger, every book you read instead of scrolling mindlessly, every moment you choose curiosity over judgment, these are the building blocks of transformation. Growth isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a way of traveling through life with intention and awareness, knowing that today's version of yourself is preparing tomorrow's possibilities. 3. I choose gratitude over complaining. I want you to imagine two people facing the exact same challenging day. Both get stuck in traffic, both receive criticism at work, both come home to unexpected bills in the mail. One person spends the evening complaining about how unfair life is, how nothing ever goes right, how the world seems designed to work against them. The other person pauses, takes a breath, and finds something, anything to be grateful for in each experience. The traffic gave them time to listen to a podcast. The criticism contained a grain of truth that could help them improve. And those bills reminded them they have a home to come to. Same day, same events, completely different lives. This is the transformative power of choosing gratitude over complaint. And it's more than just positive thinking. It's a radical act of personal sovereignty. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave before becoming one of history's greatest philosophers, understood this principle intimately when he wrote, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." He wasn't suggesting passive resignation. He was pointing toward a profound truth about human resilience. When you choose gratitude, you are not denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. You're choosing to focus on what serves your growth rather than what depletes your energy. Consider Helen Keller, who lost both sight and hearing at 19 months old. She could have spent her life focusing on what was taken from her, but instead she wrote these extraordinary words. "I thank God for my handicaps, for through them I have found myself, my work, and my God." Keller understood that gratitude doesn't mean being thankful for suffering. It means finding meaning and purpose within whatever circumstances life presents. When you wake up each morning and choose gratitude over complaint, you're making a decision that ripples through every interaction, every challenge, every opportunity that follows. You're training your mind to look for abundance instead of scarcity, possibilities instead of problems, growth instead of grievance. This isn't about forced positivity or denying legitimate concerns. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose your focus, and that choice determines not just your mood, but the trajectory of your entire day. 4. I deserve success and happiness. There's a lie that society has been telling you your entire life, and it's so pervasive that you probably don't even realize you believe it. The lie is this: you have to earn your worth. You have to prove you deserve good things. You have to justify your right to happiness and success through achievement, productivity, or meeting someone else's standards. But here's the truth that Marcus Aurelius understood when he wrote, "Adapt yourself to the life you've been given, but love the people with whom you share it." Your worth isn't something you achieve, it's something you already possess. It's woven into the very fabric of your existence, as natural and undeniable as your heartbeat. I want to tell you about Anna Mary Robertson Moses, better known as Grandma Moses. At 78 years old, when most people are settling into quiet retirement, Anna picked up a paintbrush for the first time. She had spent her entire life as a farmer's wife, raising children, tending to household duties, living what society might call an ordinary life. She had no formal training, no art education, no credentials that would suggest she deserved to be taken seriously as an artist. But here's what Grandma Moses understood that so many of us forget. She didn't need permission to create. She didn't need to prove her worthiness to pursue what brought her joy. She simply began painting because something inside her wanted to express itself. And within a few years, her work was hanging in galleries and museums across America. When you tell yourself, I deserve success and happiness, you're not being arrogant or entitled. You're acknowledging a fundamental truth about human dignity that has nothing to do with your resume, your bank account, or your past mistakes. You deserve good things not because of what you've accomplished, but because you exist. You deserve love not because you are perfect, but because you're human. This isn't about lowering standards or avoiding growth. It's about building from a foundation of self-worth rather than constantly trying to earn what was already yours from the beginning. Your worthiness isn't up for debate, it's not conditional, and it certainly doesn't expire at any age. 5. I respect and love myself. Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. If you spoke to your best friend the way you speak to yourself, how long would that friendship last? Most of us are masters of self-criticism, experts at pointing out our flaws, and incredibly skilled at treating ourselves with a harshness we'd never dream of showing others. We've been conditioned to believe that self-love is selfish, that being kind to ourselves makes us weak or complacent. But Seneca, one of the wisest men who ever lived, understood something profound when he wrote, "Be kind to yourself. You will need all your energy to become who you are meant to be." He wasn't advocating for laziness or self-indulgence. He was pointing toward a fundamental truth about human potential that we've forgotten in our achievement-obsessed culture. Consider Julia Child, who at 36 years old had never seriously cooked a meal in her life. While living in Paris with her diplomat husband, she could have compared herself to the French women who'd been cooking since childhood, could have felt embarrassed about her lack of experience, could have convinced herself it was too late to start. Instead, Julia approached cooking and herself with genuine curiosity and kindness. She didn't berate herself for burning sauces or ruining soufflés. She didn't judge herself for being a beginner at an age when others might expect mastery. She simply showed up each day with respect for her own learning process, treating herself as someone worthy of patience and encouragement. That self-compassion didn't make her soft. It gave her the resilience to persist through failures and eventually revolutionize American cooking. When you tell yourself, I respect and love myself, you are not being narcissistic or self-absorbed. You're recognizing that sustainable success, meaningful relationships, and lasting happiness all flow from the relationship you have with yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't build a life of significance on a foundation of self-criticism and neglect. Self-love isn't about thinking you're perfect. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show someone you care about, especially when you're struggling, learning, or facing challenges that test your limits. Part 2, Overcoming Fear and Controlling Emotions. 6. I will treat myself with kindness. There's a moment in every person's life when the universe seems to conspire against them, when everything they love is stripped away in an instant, leaving them standing in the wreckage wondering how they'll ever find the strength to continue. For Theodore Roosevelt, that moment came on February 14, 1884, when both his beloved wife Alice and his mother died within hours of each other in the same house. In his diary that night, he drew a large X and wrote these haunting words, "The light has gone out of my life." Most of us would have crumbled under such devastating loss, would have turned that grief inward like a weapon, blaming ourselves for not being there sooner, for not doing more, for somehow failing the people we love most. But Roosevelt understood something profound about human resilience that Marcus Aurelius had written about centuries earlier. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. What Roosevelt did next reveals the true power of self-compassion. Instead of drowning in self-recrimination or allowing bitterness to consume him, he treated himself with the same gentleness he would have shown a grieving friend. He didn't minimize his pain or pretend to be stronger than he was. He acknowledged that the light had indeed gone out, but he also chose to rebuild his life with patience and understanding for his own humanity. He went west to the Badlands, not to escape his grief, but to heal in a way that honored both his loss and his need to continue living. This wasn't weakness disguised as strength. It was wisdom in action. When you tell yourself, "I will treat myself with kindness," you're not lowering your standards or accepting mediocrity. You're recognizing that self-compassion isn't the opposite of accountability. It's the foundation that makes true growth possible. You can't hate yourself into becoming better, just as you can't shame yourself into healing. Kindness toward yourself creates the emotional safety that allows you to take risks, learn from failures, and persist through challenges that would otherwise break you. Roosevelt's capacity to rebuild and eventually become one of America's greatest presidents didn't come from his ability to be harsh with himself. It came from his wisdom in treating his own heart with the care it needed to love again. 7. I take responsibility for my own happiness. Let me ask you something that might challenge everything you believe about happiness. Do you think your joy depends on your circumstances, your relationships, your health, or your bank account? Most people do, and that's exactly why most people live at the mercy of forces beyond their control, riding an emotional roller coaster that goes up and down based on whatever life throws at them. But there's a different way to live, one that Epictetus discovered after years of slavery and suffering, when he wrote, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not." This isn't philosophical theory, it's a practical blueprint for unshakable inner strength that has been tested by some of history's most resilient people. Consider Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who at 39 years old was struck down by polio, losing the use of his legs permanently. For a man who had been athletic his entire life, who loved sailing and hiking, this could have been the end of everything. Society expected him to retreat, to become a victim of his circumstances, to let his disability define the boundaries of his happiness. Instead, Roosevelt made a decision that would change not only his life, but the course of American history. He chose to take complete responsibility for his own happiness, refusing to let external circumstances dictate his internal state. He didn't deny the reality of his condition or pretend it didn't matter, but he understood that his response to that condition was entirely within his control. Roosevelt went on to lead America through the Great Depression and World War II, becoming one of the most beloved presidents in history, not despite his disability, but because he had learned the profound truth that happiness is an inside job. When you tell yourself, "I take responsibility for my own happiness," you're not denying that external circumstances matter, or that life can be genuinely difficult. You're claiming your power to choose your response, to find meaning in suffering, and to create joy regardless of what's happening around you. This isn't about forced positivity or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that while you can't control what happens to you, you always control what happens within you. And that control, once claimed, becomes the foundation of a happiness that no external force can touch. 8. I will face today with a positive attitude. Imagine walking into a room where everyone wants you to fail, where every mistake you make is magnified, where people hurl the most vicious insults they can think of simply because of who you are. Now imagine having to perform at the highest level while maintaining your composure, your dignity, and somehow, impossibly, your positive attitude. This was Jackie Robinson's reality every single day when he broke baseball's color barrier in E47. Death threats arrived in the mail, opposing players aimed fastballs at his head, and fans screamed racial slurs from the stands. He had every reason to become bitter, angry, or defeated. Instead, Robinson understood something profound that Marcus Aurelius had written over 1,000 years earlier. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Robinson's positive attitude wasn't naive optimism or pretending that racism didn't exist. It was a strategic choice, a conscious decision to focus on what he could control rather than what he couldn't. He couldn't control the hatred directed at him, but he could control his response to it. He couldn't change people's minds overnight, but he could let his character and performance speak louder than their prejudice. Every day, Robinson made the deliberate choice to see beyond the immediate hostility to the larger purpose he was serving. He understood that his attitude would either open doors for future generations or slam them shut forever. That positive mindset didn't just help him endure the abuse, it transformed him into a catalyst for social change that extended far beyond baseball. When you tell yourself, "I will face today with a positive attitude," you are not denying reality or pretending that challenges don't exist. You're making a powerful declaration that regardless of what today brings, difficult people, unexpected setbacks, or circumstances beyond your control, you will choose how to respond. Your attitude is the one thing that belongs entirely to you, and it's often the determining factor between success and failure, between growth and stagnation, between becoming bitter or becoming better. Jackie Robinson proved that a positive attitude isn't just feel-good philosophy. It's a force that can change the world, one choice at a time, starting with the choice you make right now about how you'll face whatever today has in store. 9. I am not afraid of failure. What if I told you that the thing you fear most, failure, is actually the very thing that could set you free? We've been conditioned to see failure as the enemy, as proof that we're not good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to achieve our dreams. But what if failure isn't your opponent? What if it's actually your most patient teacher, waiting to show you lessons that success never could? Seneca understood this when he wrote, "It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact." How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? He wasn't being pessimistic. He was pointing toward a liberating truth that most people never discover. When you stop fearing failure, you start living with the kind of courage that makes extraordinary things possible. Consider Thomas Edison, a man who turned failure into an art form. When working on the incandescent light bulb, he didn't succeed on his first try, or his 10th, or even his 100th. He failed over 1,000 times, each attempt bringing nothing but darkness where he hoped to create light. Lesser men would have quit, convinced that the universe was telling them to give up. But Edison understood something profound about failure that changed everything. When asked about his 1,000 failed attempts, he said, "I didn't fail 1,000 times, I found 1,000 ways that don't work." Do you see the difference? Edison didn't see failure as evidence of his inadequacy. He saw it as data, as education, as stepping stones leading him closer to his breakthrough. Each failure wasn't taking him further from his goal. It was eliminating one more path that wouldn't work, bringing him inevitably closer to the one that would. When you tell yourself, "I am not afraid of failure," you're not pretending that failure doesn't hurt or that setbacks don't matter. You're declaring that you refuse to let the possibility of failure keep you from attempting something meaningful. You're choosing to see failure as information rather than condemnation, as redirection rather than rejection. Fear of failure keeps most people playing small, choosing safety over significance, comfort over contribution. But when you embrace failure as an inevitable part of any worthwhile journey, you join the ranks of people who change the world, not because they never fail, but because they fail forward, learning and growing stronger with each attempt until breakthrough becomes inevitable. 10. I control my thoughts and emotions. There's a fortress that no army can conquer, no weapon can breach, and no enemy can infiltrate. It's not made of stone or steel. It's the citadel of your mind, and you are its sole guardian. Yet most people live as if they have no control over this sacred space, allowing every external event, every careless comment, every setback to storm through their mental gates and wreak havoc on their inner peace. But here's what Epictetus discovered after years of slavery and suffering. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't just philosophy. It's the key to a kind of freedom that no external force can ever take away from you. Let me tell you about Maya Angelou, who at the age of 8 experienced trauma so devastating that she chose not to speak for 5 years. Most people would have been consumed by rage, destroyed by bitterness, or broken by the weight of what happened to her. And for those 5 years of silence, she could have let anger control her thoughts and define her future. Instead, during that time of outward silence, She was doing something extraordinary within her mental citadel. She was reading voraciously, observing human nature, and slowly but deliberately choosing how to respond to her pain. She didn't deny what happened to her or pretend it didn't matter, but she refused to let it control her emotional destiny. When she finally chose to speak again, her voice emerged not as a victim's cry, but as a poet's song, filled with wisdom, strength, and an understanding of human resilience that would inspire millions. When you tell yourself, "I control my thoughts and emotions," you're claiming ownership of the only territory that truly belongs to you. Someone can take your possessions, your opportunities, even your physical freedom, but they cannot enter the fortress of your mind without your permission. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending difficult feelings don't exist. It means recognizing that between any stimulus and your response, there's a space, and in that space lies your power to choose. Maya Angelou transformed her pain into poetry not by avoiding her emotions, but by choosing how to channel them. Your thoughts and emotions are not random weather patterns that happen to you. They are choices you make, moment by moment, that shape not just your day, but your entire destiny. Part 3, Inner Control and Action. I learned from every experience. What if every obstacle in your path wasn't actually blocking you, but was secretly preparing you for something greater? Most people see challenges as detours from their destination, roadblocks that prevent them from reaching their goals. But Marcus Aurelius discovered something revolutionary when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He understood that obstacles aren't the enemy of progress. They are progress, disguised as problems. Every difficulty you face is actually a masterclass in disguise, teaching you skills you never knew you needed and building strength you didn't know you possessed. Consider Amelia Earhart, who from childhood faced a society that told her she was wrong simply for being herself. As a tomboy in the early 1900s, she was constantly criticized for climbing trees, playing with boys' toys, and refusing to conform to society's expectations of how young ladies should behave. Every adult who disapproved, every peer who mocked her, every institution that tried to force her into a narrow box could have broken her spirit and convinced her to live a smaller life. Instead, Earhart did something extraordinary. She treated each challenge as training. Every time someone told her she couldn't do something because she was a woman, she became more determined to prove that limitations existed only in people's minds, not in reality. When she was denied opportunities in traditional careers, she looked to the skies and found her calling in aviation, a field where even fewer women dared to venture. What made Earhart legendary wasn't her ability to avoid obstacles. It was her capacity to transform every barrier into a bridge. Each disapproving look taught her to trust her own judgment over popular opinion. Every closed door forced her to become more creative, more resourceful, more determined. When you tell yourself, "I learn from every experience," you are not just practicing positive thinking. You're adopting the mindset of every person who has ever achieved something meaningful. You're choosing to see your challenges not as evidence that you're on the wrong path, but as proof that you're being prepared for something significant. Every setback becomes a setup, every obstacle becomes an opportunity, and every experience, pleasant or painful, becomes a teacher with something valuable to offer your growth. 12. I live in the present. Here's a truth that might surprise you. You've never actually experienced the past or the future. Think about that for a moment. Every memory you have of yesterday happened in a present moment when it was today. Every plan you make for tomorrow will only be experienced when that future becomes now. Marcus Aurelius understood this profound reality when he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He wasn't suggesting you ignore planning or learning from experience. He was pointing toward the only place where life actually happens, where decisions are made, where power exists, and where peace can be found. Yet most of us spend our days everywhere except the present, lost in regrets about yesterday or anxieties about tomorrow, missing the only moment where we actually have any control. Consider Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. What made Jordan legendary wasn't just his physical talent. It was his extraordinary ability to be completely present in each moment on the court. While other players might be thinking about the championship at stake, the crowd watching, or the shot they missed 5 minutes ago, Jordan was focused entirely on the ball in his hands. the defender in front of him, and the basket ahead of him. In crucial moments, when the pressure was highest and the stakes were greatest, Jordan became even more present, not less. He understood that championships aren't won by thinking about championships. They're won by making the shot that's available right now, by playing the possession that's happening in this moment, by being fully engaged with what is rather than distracted by what was or what might be. When you tell yourself, I live in the present, you're not escaping responsibility or avoiding planning, you're claiming your power. The present moment is where your breath exists, where your choices are made, where your influence can be felt. It's the only place where love can be expressed, where creativity can flow, where problems can be solved, and where life can be fully experienced. Past regrets and future anxieties steal your energy and rob you of the very moment where transformation is possible. Jordan's greatness came from understanding that excellence isn't achieved by dwelling on past victories or future possibilities. It's created by bringing your complete attention to the opportunity that exists right now in this moment, with the circumstances you have, making the best choice available to you today. I will create value for others today. There's a paradox that has puzzled people for centuries. The more you focus on getting, the less you seem to have. But the more you focus on giving, the more abundant your life becomes. This isn't mystical thinking. It's a practical truth that Seneca understood when he wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He recognized that true fulfillment doesn't come from accumulating things for yourself, but from using your gifts, your resources, and your energy to create something meaningful for others. This is the heart of Stoic virtue ethics. Living with purpose means serving something greater than yourself. And in that service, you discover not just your impact on the world, but who you were meant to become. Consider Andrew Carnegie, who arrived in America as a poor Scottish immigrant with nothing but hope and determination. Carnegie could have spent his entire life focused solely on his own survival and success, and no one would have blamed him. Instead, as he built his steel empire and became one of the wealthiest men in history, he never forgot a fundamental truth. His success was meaningless unless it served others. Carnegie understood that wealth without purpose is just numbers on a page, but wealth directed toward education, libraries, and opportunities for others becomes a legacy that outlasts any individual life. In his later years, he gave away over 90% of his fortune, funding over 20,500 libraries worldwide and countless educational institutions. He didn't wait until he had enough for himself. He made creating value for others an integral part of his daily existence. When you tell yourself, I will create value for others today, you are not committing to grand gestures or dramatic acts of service. You are recognizing that every interaction is an opportunity to leave someone slightly better than you found them. It might be offering genuine encouragement to a struggling colleague, sharing knowledge that could help someone solve a problem, or simply listening with full attention when someone needs to be heard. Value creation doesn't require wealth or status. It requires intention and care. Carnegie's legacy isn't just the steel that built cities. It's the principle he embodied that true success is measured not by what you accumulate for yourself, but by what you contribute to others. And that contribution can begin today, with whatever resources you have, in whatever circumstances you find yourself. 14. I trust my journey. What if the path you're on, with all its unexpected turns, setbacks, and detours, is exactly where you're supposed to be? Most of us fight against our circumstances, convinced that our struggles are evidence we're on the wrong track, that our challenges mean we've made poor choices, or that our timeline doesn't match some invisible standard of how life should unfold. But Marcus Aurelius understood something profound about the nature of our individual journeys when he wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." He wasn't advocating for passive resignation. He was pointing toward a kind of active trust that allows you to work with your circumstances rather than constantly fighting against them. Consider George Washington Carver, born into slavery in the 1860s with every conceivable disadvantage. He could have looked at his circumstances and concluded that education and scientific achievement were impossible for someone like him. Society certainly told him so at every turn. Yet Carver possessed something extraordinary, an unshakable trust in his journey, even when that journey led through racism, poverty, and countless rejections. When he was denied admission to colleges because of his race, he didn't abandon his pursuit of knowledge. He found alternative paths. When he finally gained admission to Iowa State University, he could have been bitter about the years of delay, but instead, he brought a maturity and determination that made him exceptional. Carver trusted that every obstacle was preparing him for something greater, and that trust allowed him to become one of America's most influential agricultural scientists, revolutionizing farming in the South and lifting countless people out of poverty. When you tell yourself, "I trust my journey," you're not claiming that everything that happens to you is good or fair. You're making a decision to believe that your experiences, all of them, are contributing to your growth and preparing you for your unique contribution to the world. This trust doesn't make you passive, it makes you resilient. It allows you to stop wasting energy fighting against what is, and instead channel that energy toward making the most of where you are. Carver's genius wasn't just in his scientific discoveries. It was in his ability to trust that his difficult path was forging exactly the character and skills he would need to serve others. Your journey, with all its imperfections and challenges, is doing the same for you. 15. I will take action today. There's a moment in every person's life when they stop waiting for permission, stop looking for the perfect circumstances, and simply do what needs to be done. Most of us spend years preparing, planning, and waiting for that magical moment when everything aligns perfectly. When we have enough experience, enough confidence, enough resources, or enough certainty about the outcome. But Epictetus understood something that separates those who change the world from those who merely talk about it when he wrote, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." He knew that the perfect moment is a myth, that clarity comes through action, not before it, and that the world is changed by people who act on their convictions even when, especially when, the conditions aren't ideal. Consider Rosa Parks on December 1st, 1955, sitting on that Montgomery City bus after a long day of work as a seamstress. She didn't wake up that morning planning to become a civil rights icon or to spark a movement that would change American history. She wasn't a trained activist, she didn't have a master plan, and she certainly couldn't have predicted the consequences of her decision. When the bus driver ordered her to give up her seat to a white passenger, Parks had a choice that millions of people face every day in smaller ways. She could comply with an unjust system to avoid conflict, or she could act according to her deepest convictions, regardless of the cost. In that moment, Parks didn't calculate the political ramifications or wait for someone more qualified to take a stand. She simply refused to give up her seat because, as she later said, it was the right thing to do. When you tell yourself, "I will take action today," you're not committing to grand gestures or life-altering decisions. You're choosing to stop letting perfectionism paralyze you. Rosa Parks didn't change the world because she was perfect or because conditions were ideal. She changed the world because she was willing to act on her values in an ordinary moment that became extraordinary through her courage. Every day presents you with opportunities to embody your philosophy rather than just explain it. To take the step that's available to you right now rather than waiting for the step you wish were available. Action creates clarity, movement generates momentum, and the world responds to what you do, not what you plan to do someday when everything is perfect. Part 4. Building a positive mindset. 16. I am grateful for my health, my loved ones, and my opportunities. Here's something that might challenge your entire perspective on difficult days. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, began each morning by reminding himself of all the difficult people he would encounter. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism, it was profound wisdom. By acknowledging that challenges were inevitable, he freed himself to be grateful for what remained constant: his health, his capacity to love, and his opportunities to make a difference. Gratitude for the Stoics wasn't about pretending life was perfect. It was about recognizing abundance even in the midst of adversity. Let me tell you about Ray Charles, who lost his sight at the age of 7 to glaucoma. Imagine being a child and having the visual world disappear forever. No more sunsets, no more faces of loved ones, no more ability to navigate the world the way everyone else does. Ray could have spent his life focused on what was taken from him, could have become bitter about the unfairness of his circumstances, could have seen only limitation where others saw possibility. Instead, Ray Charles made a choice that would define not just his life, but American music itself. He chose to be grateful for what remained. "I was born with music inside me," he once said. "Music was one of my parts, like my ribs, my kidneys, my liver, my heart, like my blood. It was a force already within me when I arrived on the scene. It was a necessity for me, like food or water." When you tell yourself, "I am grateful for my health, my loved ones, and my opportunities," you're not denying the existence of problems or pretending everything is perfect. You're choosing to see abundance where others see scarcity, possibility where others see limitation. Ray Charles didn't become a musical genius despite his blindness. He became a genius because he focused completely on the gifts that remained rather than mourning what was lost. His gratitude wasn't passive appreciation. It was an active force that transformed limitation into liberation. Every morning offers you the same choice. You can focus on what's missing, what's wrong, or what's difficult. Or you can begin with gratitude for the health that allows you to wake up, the people who care about you, and the countless opportunities that exist within this single day. Chapter 17. I can handle whatever comes my way today. There's a difference between confidence and courage that most people never understand. Confidence comes from knowing you can handle situations you've faced before, but courage comes from trusting that you can handle whatever comes, even if you've never experienced it. This is the kind of inner strength that Seneca was pointing toward when he wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He understood that life constantly presents us with endings that force new beginnings, with challenges that require us to become someone we've never been before. The question isn't whether difficulties will come, they will. The question is whether you trust your ability to rise to meet them. Consider Harriet Tubman, who faced a choice that would have paralyzed most people: escape slavery and live in freedom, or escape and then repeatedly return to help others find that same freedom. After her own harrowing escape to the North, Tubman could have settled into her new life, grateful to be free and safe. Instead, she made a decision that defied all logic and safety. She would return to the South 19 times to lead others through the Underground Railroad. Each journey meant facing bloodhounds, bounty hunters, treacherous terrain, and the constant threat of capture, torture, or death. She had never been a military strategist, never been trained in covert operations, never studied the art of evading professional slave catchers. But Tubman possessed something more powerful than expertise. She had unshakable faith in her ability to handle whatever each dangerous mission would bring. What made Tubman legendary wasn't that she never felt fear or uncertainty. It was that she acted despite these feelings, trusting that she would find a way through whatever obstacles appeared. She didn't need to know how she would handle every possible scenario. She just needed to trust that she would handle them. When you tell yourself, "I can handle whatever comes my way today," you're not claiming omnipotence or denying that challenges are real. You're acknowledging that you have resources within you that you haven't fully discovered yet, resilience that emerges only when tested, and creativity that appears only when conventional solutions aren't available. Tubman never lost a single person on those 19 dangerous journeys, not because the path was easy, but because she faced each obstacle with the unshakable belief that there was always a way forward for those determined to find it. I have the ability to do great things. What if greatness isn't about being born with extraordinary talent, but about having extraordinary persistence with ordinary gifts? We live in a culture obsessed with prodigies and overnight sensations, stories of people who seem destined for greatness from birth. But Epictetus understood something profound about human potential when he wrote, "No great thing is created suddenly." He knew that the most meaningful achievements don't come from flashes of genius. They come from the quiet, daily commitment to develop whatever abilities you have, regardless of when you start or how long it takes to see results. Consider Laura Ingalls Wilder, who spent the first 64 years of her life as a farmer's wife and mother, living what most would consider an ordinary existence on the American frontier. She had no formal literary training, no publishing connections, no reason to believe she possessed any special writing talent. Yet at 65, an age when many people are settling into retirement, Wilder published her first Little House book. She didn't suddenly develop writing ability overnight. She had been observing life, collecting stories, and understanding human nature for decades without realizing she was preparing for her life's greatest work. Her childhood experiences on the prairie, the hardships she endured, the simple wisdom she gained through years of living, all of it became the foundation for books that would touch millions of children and families for generations. Wilder's story reveals something crucial about your own potential. You already possess the raw materials for greatness, even if you can't see them yet. Your experiences, your perspectives, your unique way of understanding the world. These aren't accidents or random occurrences. They're the building blocks of whatever contribution you are meant to make. When you tell yourself, I have the ability to do great things, you're not claiming to be superhuman or denying the need for effort and growth. You're recognizing that greatness doesn't require perfection from the beginning. It requires persistence through the process. Wilder didn't become a beloved author because she was born to write. She became an author because she finally trusted that her life experiences had value and that sharing them could matter to others. Your ability to do great things isn't determined by your age, your background, or your past achievements. It's determined by your willingness to develop whatever gifts you have and your courage to offer them to the world. 19. Today is a new beginning. Every morning you wake up to something that countless people throughout history would consider a miracle, a fresh start. Not everyone gets this gift. Not everyone opens their eyes to another chance, another opportunity to write a different story than yesterday's. Yet most of us treat this daily resurrection as routine, as ordinary, as something we're entitled to, rather than something we're privileged to receive. Epictetus understood the profound purport of this daily renewal when he wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Each morning offers you the chance to react differently, to choose differently, to be different than you were yesterday, regardless of what yesterday contained. Consider Benjamin Franklin, who refused to let age define the boundaries of his new beginnings. At 70 years old, when most people would be settling into the comfort of past achievements, Franklin invented bifocals because he was tired of switching between two pairs of glasses. At 78, he helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris that ended the Revolutionary War. At 81, he was actively involved in drafting the Constitution that would govern a new nation. Franklin didn't see age as a barrier to innovation or contribution. He saw each day as an opportunity to learn something new, create something useful, or serve something greater than himself. He understood that as long as you're breathing, you're capable of beginning again, regardless of how many years have passed or how many mistakes you've made. When you tell yourself, today is a new beginning, you're not erasing the past or pretending yesterday's challenges don't exist. You're claiming your power to respond to today with fresh energy, renewed purpose, and different choices. Yesterday's failures don't have to define today's actions. Yesterday's limitations don't have to constrain today's possibilities. Yesterday's version of yourself doesn't have to be today's prison. Franklin proved that new beginnings aren't reserved for the young. They're available to anyone willing to approach each day with curiosity, hope, and the courage to try again. The sunrise doesn't ask your age before it rises. The day doesn't check your credentials before it offers its opportunities. And your potential doesn't expire just because time has passed. Today is indeed a new beginning. And the only question that matters is, what will you begin? These 19 affirmations aren't just words to repeat. They're a complete philosophy for living that has been tested by 2,000 years of human experience. Each one is rooted in the core Stoic principles that Marcus Aurelius practiced while governing an empire, that Epictetus developed while enduring slavery, and that Seneca refined while navigating the complexities of Roman politics. These men understood something profound. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. You cannot change your circumstances, but you can change yourself. You cannot guarantee external success, but you can commit to internal virtue. When you practice these affirmations daily, you're not just engaging in positive thinking. You're training your mind in the same way these ancient philosophers trained theirs. You're building resilience muscle by muscle, developing wisdom choice by choice, and creating the kind of unshakable inner strength that no external force can touch. Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions or becoming cold and detached from life. It's about transforming your emotions through reason and virtue, about feeling deeply while thinking clearly, about caring passionately while acting wisely. These principles don't promise that life will become easy. They promise that you will become stronger. The path forward is simple but not easy. Apply these principles consistently, day after day, until they become as natural as breathing. Start tomorrow morning with the first affirmation and work through them gradually, letting each one reshape how you see yourself and your place in the world. This is how you develop the kind of inner strength that remains steady in case, the kind of wisdom that finds opportunity in obstacles, and the kind of character that influences others through example rather than words. The Stoics knew that philosophy without practice is merely intellectual entertainment, but philosophy lived daily becomes the foundation of an extraordinary life. If these principles resonate with you, if you're ready to commit to this ancient path of inner development, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 19 affirmations speaks to you most powerfully, and subscribe to this channel for more content that will help you build the unshakable strength that comes from living according to timeless wisdom. Your journey towards Stoic resilience begins with a single choice. Make it today.